As most of you could probably tell, Super Mario Odyssey is my favorite video game ever made, which means I played through it several times. Of course, with each playthrough, you'll have to fight the bosses, which got me thinking, how would I rank these bosses from worst to best? Considering it's been 9 months since my last Odyssey-centric video, I thought it'd be a fun one today to rank all the bosses. Now, how many bosses are there exactly? Well, there are 13 unique ones, however each boss has at least 2 different times you fight them, with the Brutals and Bowser getting 3 total fights, bringing us to 31 bosses to rank. Each time you fight a boss, the mechanics of it are slightly changed, which is why I decided to rank each battle with them separately, though most of the time the same boss will be next to itself in the rankings. However, another important thing is what am I exactly ranking them off of? Well, I'll be ranking them on several things, how fun they are to go against, how creative they are, and for some, how fun their speedrun strats are. Most of the bosses have ways to make them faster, so I'll be including how fun those are to perform, how difficult they are to perform, and how cool they look as well in the rankings. This is not solely based on difficulty, which means the hardest one may be somewhere in the middle of the list, who knows. However, if a boss is too easy, that will be a factor here. My last thing to note before I start is that this is all just my opinion, and it's okay to disagree. If you enjoyed this video, then please make sure to leave a like and maybe even subscribe, but with that being said, let's jump right into my rankings for all the bosses in Super Mario Odyssey. Oh yeah, and also spoilers ahead. Alright, so in my opinion, the worst boss in the game is Madame Brood in the Moon Cave. Now to some of you this may seem like an odd choice for last place, however I think I've got a good reason here. Normally, to get to Bowser on the moon, you have to climb through the Moon Cave, which houses my boy Dry Bones for Smash. But anyways, once you get to the top, you have to fight Madame Brood, which is just a slightly harder version of her fight from Cascade Kingdom. Once you beat her, then you can exit the cave and continue on to Bowser. Now why do I think this is the worst boss then? Well, instead of going through the entire cave, you can just do this. This is super fast compared to going through the entire Moon Cave, meaning if I'm ever facing this boss, then I'm just upset the whole time that I either accidentally started it somehow, or I wasn't able to get Moon Skip, even though it's quite easy. This is the only boss in the game that isn't required to get any moons, aside from the Bowser fight you unlock after collecting all the moons. So for Madame Brood in the Moon Cave being completely useless and a boss I dislike to fight, she gets the 31st spot on this list. Next up we have... how do I say this name? Anyways, we have this Octopus Rematch next on the list. First off, I don't really love his design like most of the other bosses, but that's really aside the point. In his fight, you use the Gushion to attack his head by spraying it repeatedly with water. Now only the Rematch in the Mushroom Kingdom takes this spot, as it's too easy and time consuming. Since it's raining, the Gushion will never run out of water here, which I think takes away from the boss's difficulty completely. Basically, as long as you keep moving, you'll basically never get hit, so it's just a time-consuming waiting game for him to stop and get into position where you can hit him. I feel like the boss fight would have been so much better if instead of it raining, there may be only a few spots where Mario could refill, making it much more of a strategic fight. The Gushions are one of my favorite captures, but making them have infinite water makes this rematch way easier and much more boring than the original in my opinion. So for that reason, he gets this spot at number 30. Next up we have the first of the 4 main Brutals, Spewer. His main gimmick is spitting out poison at the player, then upon being hit will track poison behind him as he spins around in his hat. Now I would like to say that from Spewer up, I do like all the bosses, so it was quite hard to rank them. Now as for why Spewer is low, it's pretty much because of how boring his mechanic is and how easy he is to defeat. Also, I might be completely missing something here, but he seems to be the only Brutal to not really receive any changes between rematches, and instead his only changes are the arena he's in. I think it would have been really cool if he would spit out the pink lava from Luncheon in his battle there, and normal lava based off the lava in the Moon Cave for his battle on the dark side of the moon. Maybe if they wanted to go all out, they could use the one-hit kill poison from the Lost Kingdom for his dark side battle, though that might be a bit too difficult. I don't know how hard that'd be to implement, but I think that'd make this boss much more interesting and difficult. The speedrun strat is incredibly simple to perform as well, where all you have to do is jump on his hat once he starts moving, and he'll go back to his normal position. This is extremely easy to do, and even if you miss, you can just do it easily at any point. This makes it pretty much the quickest Brutal to defeat and completely uninteresting. Now as for how I rank them, I'm putting his Darkseid battle at 29 since you could just easily stay in the air due to the moon gravity making his battle even easier than it already is. Then I'll put his wooded battle at 28 since I think it's slightly easier than the Luncheon battle at 27 due to its arena shape. Really 28 and 27 are pretty equal and could honestly just change. I like the idea and design behind Spewer, I just think he had more potential. Topper is the next boss on the list. I like his design and most of his attack patterns are pretty good. He's the first boss you'll face in the game in the Cap Kingdom. What you have to do is knock off all of his hats, then jump on him, which is pretty easy to do. Upon jumping on him, he'll spawn a bunch of hats that you have to dodge until he comes back up. Then you have to knock off all of his hats again while he does a spin attack as well, which will change its range depending on how many hats he has on. Now his speedrun strats are fairly simple to understand. If you jump on his back while he's doing his spin, then it will count as a hit, and if you jump on his hat that he's hiding in between hits, then he'll get up much faster. The only thing is jumping on whatever hat he's in gets really annoying as you have to do it in a certain amount of time, and if you miss it, then you have to waste a bunch of time guessing or just waiting for him to get back up on his own. So while he is a solid boss with a good design and attack pattern, his jank and easy difficulty make him harder to go much higher than this spot on the list for me. As for the individual Topper ranking, I'm putting Cap Kingdom Topper as the worst at 26, as it only takes 2 hits to defeat him, and he's only got 3 hats, which make him super easy. Then we have his rematch on the dark side at 25, since the moon gravity makes it a bit too easy to avoid his attacks since they're mostly ground based, and it makes the fight a bit more janky than normal. Finally, Bowser's Kingdom has the best Topper at 24, with him having a ton of hats and an actual chance to hurt the player without moon gravity. Now I could see this one being a bit of a controversial pick, but I'm placing the Mecha Wiggler here on the list. I really do like its design quite a bit, and it fits well as a boss for New Donk City. The only thing is, it's quite annoying to fight with Sherm. First, let me explain its attacks. Basically, it'll climb up the wall and then you have to use Sherm to hit each of its segments to then stun it for a flurry attack. That will cause it to then go into portals and try to rush down the player until going back on the wall to shoot projectiles at the player. So what is my problem with this exactly? Well, on the second phase, if you don't shoot all the segments in a tight time limit, then the Mecha Wiggler will do its extremely time-consuming portal phase again, which just gets extremely annoying to deal with. The Wiggler's path on the wall is completely random as well, and with Sherm's a bit wonky controls, it makes it easy to just miss one segment and then have to go through the long cycle of basically just waiting. This boss is extremely annoying in that way, and I always seem to only need one more hit, but then Sherm won't look at it or it won't let me shoot again, thus causing me to have to go through the long portal sequence once more. Honestly, it's really Sherm's fault for ruining this boss fight for me with its kind of poor controls. But either way, I still do like the design and idea behind the Mecha Wiggler, which is why it's still above the other entries. I'm putting its first fight in 23rd, with its rematch in 22nd, as I feel like adding another Mecha Wiggler makes a fight more interesting, especially during the portal phase, where 2 of them charge you at once. Next up, we've got the Cascade Kingdom version of the Madame Brood fight. Last time, I didn't really go into depth on the actual fight, so I suppose I should do that now. What you have to do is knock the hat off her Chain Chomp, then launch it back at her 3 times. This works well as a boss here, since the Chain Chomps were really the main capture of the Cascade Kingdom, so it's a good progression of using that enemy. It's also fun to have this little setup during the fight to capture her Chain Chomp a bit faster. Overall, it's a pretty solid boss fight. If you want to count them as part of the boss fight, then there's a fun skip known as Dino Skip to get there early, where you jump off this trampoline, then out of the dino into the arena. There's also a new trick, but that's really hard to perform, so when I play, I'll just stick with the old dino strats. But yeah, overall, it's a solid fun boss fight with it doing a good job building off the kingdom's mechanics, and it also has some fun skips before and during the fight, putting this at the 21st spot. Next on our list, we have the Luncheon Kingdom boss, Cookatiel. Like Madame Brood, this builds off one of the main captures of the kingdom in a creative way, in this case, the Lava Bubble. In this battle, you have to use the lava bubble to ride up Cookatiel's lava spit, which I know sounds weird, especially since they're spitting into the pot of food that the whole population eats, but anyways, you ride up it and then hit them in the head 3 times, with each time the path up to his head getting crazier while he rains dangerous fruit from his mouth. This fight is just all around quite fun, and again, does a great job building on the lava bubble's utility. The only bad thing I could say about this fight is the speed strat is a bit janky. What you have to do is hit them from underneath by jumping into them with a lava bubble to cause them to immediately begin their lava trail phase. The thing is though, what it counts as a hit is a bit weird, and sometimes I swear it should count, but it just doesn't. Aside from that though, this battle is all around fun and a great one to end the Luncheon Kingdom story. I'm putting its default fight here at 20 and its rematch at 19, as I feel the spike things that they add make the boss a bit harder, which I definitely think is for the better. And also, one nice little thing is that once you defeat Cookatiel, you cook him alive. A bit violent, but, you know, it probably tastes good. Now we've got the tallest of the Brutals, Rango. He's by far the hardest of the four and has quite a few ways to defeat him. Normally, you have to jump off his hats to fly onto him. Then, he'll jump around towards Mario trying to hit him with his now spiked hat. However, I like the speedrun strat better. This is quite difficult, though it isn't so bad once you actually know what you're doing. What you have to do is jump on him as Mario, because you can actually jump high enough to hit him without needing to use his hats. Then, backflip right when you see the spikes on his hat appear to jump on him when he jumps. Then, ground pound and throw Cappy at the peak of your jump to hit him right away. Repeat this once more and you'll be able to defeat him. I really like doing this as it's fairly challenging to do, which makes it more rewarding if you get it. For the individual rankings, I'm putting Darkseid Rango at 18 as the moon gravity makes a speedrun trick a bit wonky to do. Then his lake one at 17 for being a bit easier than his snow one at 16, since the ice makes him a bit harder but more rewarding to beat. Also, completely unrelated, but I find it very entertaining for some reason that in the official Minecraft Mario texture pack, Rango are pillagers. I have no idea why I like this so much, I just find it very entertaining.
Bruh. Bruh.
Next up we have our friend who we can't say the name of, the Octopus once again. This time, it's his normal fight in the Seaside Kingdom. Like some of the ones I mentioned previously, it builds on a capture, in this case being the Gushin. While I may not like the Octopus's design as much as, say, Cookatiel, I decided to place him higher as I find the Gushins more fun, and I like how the boss fight takes place throughout the entire kingdom. The only thing I don't really like about this is it's kind of hard to tell if you actually hurt him or not, but I think this is a fun use of the Gushins and a good showcase of the chaos this boss causes as it rampages through the entire kingdom. That's why I'm putting it at the 15th spot. Now onto our final Brutal, Harriet. During her boss fight, she'll throw bombs at you until she eventually grows big bombs on her hair, which will slam down towards the ground. Then you have to hit those with Cappy, which will go flying back into Harriet's face, which will then cause her to go into her hat and fly over you, dropping down bombs before going back into her normal phase. Now why do I like Harriet? Well, I simply find her speedrun strats fun to do. Basically, if you hit her bombs she throws at you in the right way, then they'll go back and hit her, allowing you to hit her early. When she's in her flying stage, you can do a similar thing there as well. It's hard to really explain, but I just find quickly lining up the shot to be quite fun, which is why she's my favorite Brutal to go against. For her individual ranking, her original fight in sand will be at 14, since it's really easy since there's only one bomb. It's no challenge to line up the speedrun strat at all, so that's why it's the worst Harriet one. The Darkseid version is at 13 because the moon gravity makes it a bit less fun than the Bowser Kingdom version at 12. I like the double bombs, which make you need to line up at a slightly harder angle. The speedrun strat isn't that hard to do, but I enjoy doing it, so Harriet gets these spots. For our next spot, we've got the Cloud Kingdom version of the King of the Koopas, Bowser. In this fight, he'll throw his hat at the player, along with phantom hats, and the player has to throw Cappy to stop it, then put it on Mario. Once it's on, Bowser will jump around the arena causing shockwaves of fire, then he'll throw spheres at Mario. Once you get to him, then you can punch Bowser until the cycle repeats. Now this spot is only counting the first encounter with Bowser here in Cloud Kingdom, as it's quite a bit different later on. Still though, it's quite the fun battle to do, especially with the speedrun strat. If you equip Bowser's hat close enough to Bowser, then you can stop him from jumping, leading to a much quicker fight. This battle is just really nice and has a good flow to it, with the speedrun strat being a nice challenge as well. This is just a really good all-around fight, so I think this deserves the number 11 spot. This won't be the last time we see Bowser though. Starting off the top 10 here, we've got Torque Drift, the final boss of the Wooded Kingdom. I really like its alien-like design, and it's one of my favorites in the game. In this boss fight, like some of the others I've mentioned, it builds upon a previously established capture, in this case being the Uproot. The Uproot is one of my favorite captures in Odyssey. I just love the way it moves and its ability to stretch, so this boss fight using them already makes it pretty good. Torque Drift is here to steal the Wooded Kingdom's flowers, so Mario has to stop them. To do this, Mario has to destroy these things encased in bricks by stretching with the Uproot, which will cause the Torque Drift to flip. Once flipped, all Mario has to do is stretch into it with the uproot, which will cause it to shoot out laser rings of varying heights before repeating its pattern from earlier. Now this boss doesn't really have any speed strats that I know of, however that's perfectly fine as going through its attacks are fun on their own. This boss uses the uproots amazingly, so that's why I think I had to put it up here. The default version will take the number 10 spot as I feel like its rematch is significantly better. It adds these ring things at the side which will go off whenever they're hit, adding a bit more fun to dodging in this battle. So for that reason, the rematch will take the 9th spot on this list. Now onto the final boss of the Sand Kingdom, Nucleotech. One of my favorite parts about this boss is just how ingrained into the kingdom he is. On pretty much all parts of the ruins, you'll be able to see his face, showing that he's an important part of their society in the Sand Kingdom. I can't really think of any other boss that's really this connected to their kingdom than Nucleotech, so that's already pretty cool. On top of that, his boss fight is also pretty fun where he'll do a variety of attacks using his floating hands. The player is able to get these hands to stun themselves by making them slam onto the ice parts of the arena, or Mario can then capture them. These basically act as bullet bills, which is pretty much the main capture of the Sand Kingdom. Using these, you can fly them into Nucleotech 3 times to defeat him. I really enjoy all different phases of this fight, and while there aren't really any speed strats, the variety of his attacks make him fun to go against. He's got his normal fist slam, but he also has his fist charge at you, make ice rain from the ceiling, and even try to clap Mario. On top of all of this, I like using the bullet bills, so his fists acting similar to them is also pretty fun. I also like his arena, being a cold icy cave underneath what's supposed to be the hot Sand Kingdom. That was of course until Bowser stole his ring, which caused the kingdom to freeze over. With his cool attacks and just how connected Nucleotech is to the story of the Sand Kingdom, he gets these spots. His default battle is at 8, as I feel like his rematch is much better. Of all the rematches, this is the one that I feel like is the most difficult, especially compared to their original fight. This time he'll spawn in mummies which will chase Mario, making there be quite a ton of things that can hurt him, making this quite hard but also really fun. So his rematch takes number 7. Now onto the game's final boss, Bowser himself. We already ran over his fight in the Cloud Kingdom, however there are a few changes here when it comes to the Moon Kingdom fights. For one, he will now jump into the center and shoot fire at Mario upon getting hit. On top of that, he will now throw out more hats and will swing his tail more between punches. The main fight is quite fun to do, again with a similar speed strat. I also like how he will comment on Mario's costume before the fight, saying something different depending on what Mario is wearing, which is a really fun detail. Speaking of outfits, I really like Bowser's design in Odyssey with his wedding outfit. I think it suits him. But anyways, the fight itself is obviously not the only reason this is all the way up here. After beating Bowser, we enter the escape sequence, which is just incredible. This will allow you to capture and control Bowser himself, which was something I'm sure most people were hoping they'd be able to do. I know I sure was hoping. He's a really fun capture to use as well, being able to shoot fire and swipe at rocks. This escape room is fun to run through and try to do quickly, with you having to avoid the falling moon rocks from the ceiling from the moon cave, while destroying rocks that are in your path. This is also the only capture you could take into a 2D section, where it reuses Bowser's big mushroom sprite from Mario Maker 1, which I always really liked. Then you could go to the last section where the second lyrical track, Break Free Lead the Way, will play, which is also a great song just like Jump Up Superstar. You have to destroy these 4 pillars, and I always have fun trying to shoot them down while I'm moving from a distance. I'm bad at it, but it's fun to see just how many shots I can get in. The escape sequence is just so incredibly good that Bowser has to take these spots. There are actually 2 different versions of this ending. The normal one at the end of the game, which takes number 6, and one that you'll actually unlock after collecting all the moons. This one has the main fight just be a bit harder, with Bowser swinging his tail more. I wish they had a bit more changes than that, but I actually think it's really cool that they added a harder version as a reward, so that will make it take the number 5 spot. Honestly, Bowser and the other 2 bosses above him are pretty much all tied, and I had such a hard time ranking these that I wouldn't be surprised if they change around. Either way, this was an incredible way to end Odyssey's main story, and I absolutely loved it. Alright, there are 2 more bosses left, so I'm going to be giving runner-up to the Lord of Lightning. I mean, I'm sure you all knew this would be pretty high up on the list. The Lord of Lightning's design is just so cool, being a giant realistic dragon, but what makes it special is of course the fact that it's in a Mario game. Not only that, but he's one of the few bosses to get his own kingdom, pretty much. While it's sad that Ruined is so small, it's still cool that we got an amazing boss design and fight out of it. The cutscene leading up to the fight is amazing as well, with Bowser riding him and forcing him to shoot down to the Odyssey. Everything about the boss's presentation is better than all the other bosses. Not only that, but he's also quite fun to go against as well. You have to dodge his laser rings that roll around the arena until he slams his head into the ground, creating uniquely shaped electric shockwaves. Then you'll have a bit of time to climb onto his head and dislodge each of the swords, which will then allow you to ground pound his weak spot. While there aren't any real speedrun strats, this is still a fun boss battle to do, and the presentation of it just helps it stand out among the rest. So for that, the default version gets the number 4 spot, and its rematch gets 3rd as the shockwaves now go vertically, making it a bit more challenging. But now for what I believe to be my favorite boss in Super Mario Odyssey, is the Mecha Brutal. This has all the Brutals go into one giant mech suit to shoot out bombs out at Mario, with a ton of other attacks. However, using the Pokio, Mario is able to shoot the bombs back at the Mecha Brutal's legs, causing them to lose their metal coating. This allows Mario to climb up them to hit any one of the Brutals he chooses. Like I said before, this uses Pokios, who are the main capture of Bowser's Kingdom, which means this boss is also built upon that. It also uses bombs that were also prevalent throughout the kingdom as well, which makes this a good combination of all the elements from Bowser's Kingdom. The design of the mech is also really cool, combining all the Brutals, Topper, Harriet, Spewer, and Rango into Bubbles controlling the mech, with Madame Brood being the face of it. But what makes this boss really above the others like Bowser or the Lord of Lightning? It's the boss's speedrun stretch, which I believe to be the coolest, hardest, and most fun of all the bosses in the game. Normally, Mario will get flung off after hitting one of the Brutals while the mech is down. However, using some Cappy Dives, you're able to stay on the mech to hit the other Brutals. I love that this boss still lets you choose any of the Brutals to hit inside the bubbles, even though the mech is still standing. The way the Mecha Brutal moves makes it tricky to attack any of them without falling, which also adds a bit more challenge to it. Nintendo also thought of adding a timer here, so if you don't attack one in time, you'll get flung off. This boss also allows you to attack the Brutals in any order you like, leading to this battle having by far the most different routes to beat it out of all the bosses in the game. The way the mech is designed as well lets you climb up it without needing to take it down with Pokio. While I know the basics of doing this fight, it's always one of the most entertaining parts of a speedrun to watch pro players take this boss in particular down quickly. These tricks are no easy task either, requiring tons of practice compared to the other bosses, making it so much more rewarding when pulled off. I would say the Mecha Brutal, speedrun strats or not, is the hardest boss in the game, which I think also adds to the fun in beating it. So as for its individual ranking, the Darkseid version gets 2nd as the moon gravity makes it a bit too easy to climb up and stay on the mech, so the winner for the best boss in Super Mario Odyssey goes to the Bowser's Kingdom Mecha Brutal. But anyways, that's it for this video. I love pretty much all the bosses in this game, so the rankings changed a lot during this video. What's your favorite boss in Odyssey? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like and maybe even subscribe for more on Odyssey and anything else Nintendo Switch. And after making this video, I realized why I don't make many videos on Odyssey, because if I start talking about it, you can't stop me, which is why this video is so long. I'm not sure how frequently I'll be doing videos on Odyssey. If this video does really well, then I'll be happy to make more. So if you want to see more videos on Odyssey, then please make sure that this video does well for me. I enjoyed making this video a ton though, since I had an excuse to replay through Odyssey to get footage, which I'll never complain about. But anyways, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.